All right, guys, welcome back to the B&B Professional. I am so excited for today's episode. I am humbled by today's guest, and I'll just get right to it. Julie George is on the show. I am so excited for today. I've been planning, even in between. I've been moving apartments, and even in between, I've been thinking like, what am I gonna ask her? What am I gonna ask her? Been reading your book and all that. So let's introduce Julie George for those of you who don't know, who are listening and just are finding out about Julie George. She is a big player in the short-term rental industry. She is a co-author of Hospitable Hosts and the author of $1 Million Hosts, which outlines her story and unique SDR property management business model that resulted in a portfolio of 130 properties and generated more than $8 million in income in 3 years. Both books have become international bestsellers and proving to add incredible value to budding entrepreneurs around the world. This businesswoman from Australia is now considered one of the world's leading experts in short-term rentals, judge of the Shortyz Awards, which is the most prestigious industry worldwide awards. She's an investor, shareholder, and advisor to many well-known companies in the hospitality industry. Julie's been featured on podcasts, newspapers, magazines, and TV worldwide. She travels the world speaking at conferences. And as one of the most influential names in the short-term rental space, she supports, mentors, and inspires thousands of hosts worldwide. She also offers consulting and mentoring to others wanting to replicate her success. And this is it's a bit of a long intro, but it's so much like to concise everything that you've done, Julie George. You're an inspiration to everybody out there. I first heard you on the podcast Get Paid for Your Pad. And found out about you and all that. And I am so humbled. Again, welcome to the show, Julie George.
Thank you, Kevin. How exciting to be here and to talk to you. And, we first connected, about a month ago, I guess now in
Right.
Fort Lauderdale. I was traveling the world. I've done 11 weeks of the last 16 weeks. I've been traveling internationally,
Wow.
just helping other people and speaking at conferences, but helping budding entrepreneurs get into the short-term rental space. So it was such a pleasure to meet you in person. Now I get to be on your podcast.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm coming to you from the future. So it's 8:30 a.m. here in Australia. So we are a day ahead. And I
Yes.
always joke about being in the future, and the future is bright for short-term rentals.
That's beautiful. I love it. So good morning to you and good evening to me over here at 6:30 p.m. In Miami, Florida. So it's incredible that we can do this shows like so. You're all the way on the other side of the world, and we're able to do this. So again, very humbled. So first thing I want to ask you, I really want to get into it because people need to hear your story, Julie. The listeners here, my audience wants to hear your story. Because it's very, very inspiring. How'd you get started? How'd you get started in Airbnb? Like, let's start there. How'd you get started? And talk about even, I know you were basically a serial entrepreneur. You started other businesses before Airbnb. Tell us your story, please.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's my favourite story to tell. So 2016, so long ago. It's only 6 years ago, but I discovered short-term rentals and Airbnb. I was working as a realtor, and I was lucky enough to have built up a portfolio of properties myself. One of my long-term tenants in a furnished one-bedroom apartment moved out, and I thought, I wonder what all this fuss is about with Airbnb. Everyone's talking about this phenomenon of Airbnb. Right, I'm going to put the linen in, I'm turning the Wi-Fi on, I'm going to do this listing, and I'm going to try it out. And within hours, I had my first booking. Within days, I had my first guest. I loved it. I loved the
Wow.
reciprocal review system. Everyone was on their best behavior, including me.
Yeah.
I loved the money. The money was more than twice what I was getting as a long-term tenants. I got to use the property myself, which was fantastic. I've never been able to use my own investment properties, and I was able to put my mother-in-law in there if she was coming to stay, rather than have her stay with me. So
Yeah.
relatives could stay in that property. Look, I guess that's when the light bulb moment went off, and I thought, if this can work for me, it could probably work for other property investors.
Right.
So I then quickly got into putting together a business plan and decided I was going to be a property manager, and I was going to do like what a lot of real estate agents do with long-term leasing. I thought I can just do it with the short-term rental industry and charge per night rather than per month. And so my first client, I've got to tell you, this is really how it all started. Was I had a property investor come to me as a real estate agent and a broker, and they said, I want a positive cash flow property. And I looked at them and I didn't laugh out loud, but I just said, I'm sorry, they just don't exist. It's like you're asking for a unicorn,
Yeah.
but we can create one. Let's go find a property that you want to vacation in. So we went and had a look at 5 different properties. She chose one that she liked. So I sold that property to her. So cha-ching, that's income stream number 1.
Wow.
She lived interstate, so she needed somebody to furnish this property because she bought into my excitement about short-term rentals. She wanted to do it, but she lives interstate, so she needed someone to furnish it. I put my hand up and said, I'll do that for you after hours, and I'll run around to all the Targets and the Kmarts or whatever I need to do to get all the furniture, but I'm going to charge you for it. So there's an interior design charge, income stream number 2. Of course, to manage the property, how was she going to do that interstate? When she wasn't there, she wanted to make money just as I was making money on short-term rentals. So I put my hand up and I said, I will charge you 25% of any earnings plus the cleaning fee from the guest, income stream number 3. So I built my Home, which was the property management business, was born at the end of 2016. And look, quickly after that, I repeated that process. In fact, that one investor loved what I did so much that 6 months later, she rang me and she said, do it again. Here's another
Oh,
couple of
wow.
100,000. Go out and get me another one. So we went and bought her a second property, furnished it, put it online. So she was my very first client. But I just realised that there was a need out there that there was a solution that I could offer these property investors that meant that they could stay in their own properties, they could earn more money, and that they could have the assurity that the property was going to be clean and secure, and I was going to look after those properties like I would my own. And
Wow.
I guess, after putting in a good framework, a good structure, and getting a good team under me, I was able to build up to 130 properties in 2.5 years. And we can talk
Wow.
more about that in a minute, but it just blew my mind, the capabilities of all this. So,
Right. Right.
so I know that was a very long explanation, but that
Yeah.
is pretty much my story in a nutshell of the short-term rental side of things. And
That.
you asked about being an entrepreneur. Do you want me to tell you about the failing?
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. Let's start there because let's go back. Let's go back to that because it's inspiring what everything you just say is so much to it, and right now, you just said it in a couple minutes, like everything that how it started. And a lot of my audience right now, they're in that phase, right? They might have 1 to 3 listings right now, and they're looking to make it a business. They might still be at a 9 to 5, right? Working 40 hours a week, and they're like on the edge of, hey, do I start or not? Do I take that dive? And us as entrepreneurs, we know that dive can be very scary. But
very.
it's yeah, what advice and kind of talk about like how your other businesses went before this. Like, did you have a lot of successes before that? And do you have any advice for people who are looking to take that jump?
Yeah, I had good intentions. I always wanted to run my own business.
Yeah.
And if anyone reads Million Dollar Host, which is the book that talks about this all in way more detail, but way back when my son was born, he's now 24, I still wanted to earn money. I had a newborn, but I still wanted to earn some money. So I decided to start a secretarial business. And I thought, right, well, I can type up resumes, I can work from home. That was good, but that just replaced my income. I didn't have the concept of how to scale that business. Actually, I don't think even at that time I was even interested. I just wanted to earn my own money. So that was probably my first business that really had some potential. And looking back on it now, I'm kicking myself going, man, I could have just, I could have blown this thing up. The second business that I started was pretty much like Uber Eats before Uber Eats existed. It was it was called Shop and Deliver, and it was an errand running service. And it was for people that couldn't leave their home, and I had lots of patients that were maybe going through, I had one lady who was going through chemotherapy, and she just, you know what, I know that she actually just got me to go out shopping for her just for the company. She just wanted to see, somebody every day, so she'd get me to go and do some groceries one day, go and get some clothing the next day. But I had people that... I'd have, if they were too drunk to drive, I'd go and get their McDonald's for them. And so I was just charging a small fee. Yeah, that had legs. Like, we all see what Uber Eats has done around the world, and, shopping services that are doing. Man, if only I had thought about how to scale that business.
Oh my God.
So when it came time to take on the short-term rental business, I was ready. I knew exactly what I needed to do. I needed to make sure that I guess the concept worked firstly. So for the first 6 months, I actually just ran my business probably about 3 months before I met that lady that I just spoke about, the property investor. So 3 months of, do I like short-term rentals? Am I really interested in this? Can I put myself in 100%? Because it's 24/7. The novelty wears off very quickly, as most of your readers will be nodding their head right now, going, "Yes, I am sick of cleaning bathrooms and making beds and laundry. Oh my goodness!" And if anybody can figure out, like I still don't know how to fold a fitted sheet, but we all know
I can't do that. Right.
So it's so there's a lot of pains that are involved and a lot of hard work that goes into this. I really wanted to test it out first, but when I then tested it and I knew that I was onto something, when I met this woman and I thought, she jumped on straight away, and I thought, right, I can do this and I can replace my income, which was very scary at the time because I had to make that leap. Actually, do you know what? No, I'm going to tell you how I made that leap. I could have chosen to just be careful and cautious and resign from my W-2 and jump into this full-time. But how it went down, the truth of it, was that I went to the real estate principal, the principal of the business, and I said to him, I've got this idea. We're going to start a short-term rental property management arm of the real estate business. He laughed at me and looked at me like I said, we're going to start a lemonade stand.
Wow. Are you serious?
Yeah. And
he laughed at Julie George? What?
He laughed. And I'll tell you what,
he must be hating himself now.
Back to my desk. So I went back to my desk. I wrote my resignation letter. I handed it to him. I walked out the door and I thought, oh crap, now I need to make this work. So that's when I really dove in deep into the business. Can I tell you that 3 months later, my business was making more money than he was making. I poached his best staff member. And then when I sold my business 3 years later, the media got it wrong. Now, I can't disclose how much I sold my business for, but the media talked it up about that I'd sold for millions and millions of dollars. Right. Guess who rang me that very day asking for a loan?
No way. Are you serious? That's sweet. That is
the
sweet.
guy that laughed at me.
Wow.
So folks, but the real moral of the story there is that whether you decide to make the leap from your W-2 to go all in, or whether you I kind of forced, you're rash and you hand your resignation in and then you go, oh my goodness, now I need to make it work. You can make it work. And I promise you, with the right structure, with the right framework, with the right education and knowledge, and the right team under you. Now, that's really important, that you cannot do this on your own. But I always had a goal that I wanted to work on my business, not in it. I really wanted to have a lifestyle balance. For the first 12 months, I didn't. For the first 12 months, it was in the trenches. It was making beds. It was, and I remember one day making 17 beds in a row. And I thought, whose stupid idea was short-term rentals?
Yeah.
But that's when it motivated me to go and get some help. And I got my team members on board. So, but folks, if you can do that, and with a little bit of assistance with, the right team, the right procedures, you too can do exactly what I did.
Right. So let's get into that. We're in the meat here, because in the meat of the story now, because I was reading your book, and guys, I definitely recommend $1 Million Hosts. I haven't even finished it all, but I've already started just reading your story about like how you started and all that stuff, and it's really, really good. So I can't wait to finish it. And I like reading books like over and over again, so I'm probably going to read your book like 3, 4, 5 times just to, soak it all in. But one of the things that really, really stand out was the first year in business. Your revenue was $1.4 million. That is insane. Yeah. Woo, woo. That is insane. And kind of hearing your story about like you were even cleaning and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This was your first year in business.
My first year, and I was busting my ass. And my
no,
Australian,
you're good. You're good. You can curse. You can curse. It's all good.
Okay, excellent. It was hard work. That first 12 months was really tough, and no one was more surprised than I was at the earnings in that first year. I mean, that first year is always for anybody who's getting into this, getting that first 10 property. Well, getting the first property is tough. If you're managing and trying to find somebody that will give you their property and trust you to manage that property. So folks, just so you understand, I was running a management model, and that was where I was taking fully furnished properties, other people's fully furnished properties, and charging a commission. Now, there is a second model that is very popular, and that is called arbitrage, leasing and subleasing. Very popular in the United States. And that's something that you've still got to convince the landlord that you are a good tenant. So there are trial and tribulations in whatever method you choose. Of course, owning your own properties, it's great, but you can't scale up by buying properties every week. So the method that I chose, the management model, allowed me to put 3 to 4 properties on a week at some stages. Not in that first year. In the first year, I was probably putting 1 on a week. That's probably the level I was at. And I was sometimes putting on the wrong properties. I was just desperate. I was choosing, I wasn't choosing. I was taking anybody's properties that was willing to give me a go. Yeah. However, I knew that I needed to get a little more selective when some of the reviews were coming back saying, oh, there were drug deals outside.
Yes.
The police sirens kept me awake at night. That's when I knew, and I was trying to defend those by going, it's a cultural experience. It wasn't a cultural experience.
I was cracking up, literally, like cracking up because when I read one of your properties was quote unquote
the crack house.
The crack house. Yes, I was like, oh my god, like that tells the story already. Like, okay, I know what type of neighborhood you're in and how it's going down, and you got like reviews of saying like, oh, it's a nice place, but the neighbors are a little crazy or something like that. Yeah. They're a little weird.
That's when I decided I need to be more selective about what property types that I'm taking on. Yeah. Selective about owners as well, because you don't want it to be micromanaged. So being very selective about who you're working with. Yeah. But that when I fine-tuned all of that, that's when I really scaled quite heavily as well, because I knew who I wanted to deal with. I knew the boundaries I needed to set with homeowners. I put it all in. I put everything up here down on black and white, and that really was a game changer for me. But
so
yeah.
one of the interesting things, like I really wanted to bring you on the show because you are I don't see a lot of people. Well, I don't know. I'm not online as much as most people out there on social media and stuff. I kind of like just block all that stuff out. But I haven't seen a lot of people just talking more about like the management model. A lot of people, especially in the United States, are talking about arbitrage, talking about buying properties and stuff like that. But I really wanted to bring you on the show because my show as well, like I'm a big proponent of the management model. A lot of my listeners know my story about arbitrage. Like before COVID, I was up to 15 units. Like I went really fast, grew fast, and then got hit with COVID, bad partnership as well, and lost all this money. So then we flipped to the management model. So I really wanted to bring you on the show, but also because of that, but also you, when I first met you, which really stand out, was like I think I asked you what property management system you were using, and you're like, I don't use a property management system. You said I had 130 units, and it was all on Airbnb, just Airbnb platform. So can you talk about, like, because I'm trying to put into perspective to everybody listening here, like first year in business, 1.4 million. So number one, like, how was that scale? Scaling up, how was that for you? And number two, like, you did it all on Airbnb, so you did it way different than anybody I've ever heard of. So can you kind of talk about those two things? Like,
yeah, my philosophy is always keep it simple, stupid, the KISS method. There's a lot of shiny objects out there, and there's a lot of pressure to be on multiple platforms. There's a lot of pressure to have lots of software. There's a lot of pressure to have your own direct booking site. I didn't do any of those. I figured that if I could take these properties on and have the occupancy solid by just using the mega marketing platform of Airbnb to bring me my guests, I was doing the right thing. You know, it was a job, that was all I needed. I found that by just being 100% Airbnb, which freaks people out completely, because they go, well, what happens if something goes wrong, or you get cancelled, or well, just don't do anything wrong and they won't cancel you. So that was as simple as that 130 properties were on my one profile on Airbnb.
Wow.
I didn't ever have any issues. I love the fact that there was the reciprocal review system. That to me was the secret to the success of Airbnb. People were on their best behaviour. There was the $1 million host guarantee that if anything went wrong and I couldn't claim, the guest couldn't pay for it, Airbnb paid for it. But honestly, I had 5 bad guests in the whole time that I had, running thousands of guests coming through,
Wow.
So I just didn't find that I had any issues. And then thirdly, by running 100% Airbnb, I didn't need property management software or channel managers, which are really designed to make sure that if you're on multiple platforms, booking.com, VRBO, anything like that, then you've got one system to upload to all of those platforms. I just didn't need it. So I cut the costs down. I simplified the business. The direct booking side of things scared me. I did take a few direct bookings, but it was only for repeat guests. I always believe that you should get your guest the first time through an online travel agent such as Airbnb, the OTAs as we call them. Second time, you need to retarget that guest. You need to market to that person, and if they're coming back a second time to your property, they should come directly to you. But I want to make sure that they were a good guest to start with. So that was my philosophy. So I did take direct bookings, but I didn't outwardly promote it with a direct booking site. Because I think once you do that, you're then competing against the big boys, the OTAs, and there's a lot of money that can be spent on SEO to try and lift your own direct booking site up against the others. So,
Right.
so even today, I'm kind of skeptical about that side of things, and I'll probably upset a lot of people and be quite
Yeah.
controversial in saying that. But I don't know. I've started again now with some properties in Brisbane here in Australia, and I've just done it again the same. Airbnb. Actually,
Yeah.
I'll tell you the one software that I now use that I didn't use, and my biggest regret
Right.
was dynamic pricing. I thought I knew better. With 130 properties, I thought I was the expert. What an idiot. How much money did I lose by just guessing those
Yes.
prices? And actually, I can tell you how much because I've now done the figures.
Yeah.
I worked out that I lost 10 to 12% of my overall income by not using dynamic pricing, a dynamic pricing tool.
Wow.
Now that I use Price Labs, and Price Labs, I'm giving you a plug. So Richie, I'm
Yes.
yelling out
Yes.
again your name because I just believe so much in them. I now use them for my new properties, and
Yeah.
I believe that 10 to 12%. So to work out 10 to 12% of $8 million, there's $1 million loss that
Oh
I
my
could have
God.
earned. Holy crap,
Yes.
that keeps me up at night.
Wow.
So do not
Wow.
do a Julie George. If you're listening right now, the one software you do need is a dynamic pricing tool. Don't guess your prices. You'll get it wrong.
Yes. I was actually done a couple episodes on just dynamic pricing because I was doing manual pricing for a long time, and I could be- I could just thinking about you with 130 properties and doing it manually
Yeah.
is it gives me anxiety. I don't know
I
how
know.
you did that.
Like,
Yeah. Did you have like somebody like a team of people that are pricing just for you?
oh, so yeah, at 130 properties, I had 3 employees. I had
Okay.
2 property managers who would do the pricing. So they would,
Okay.
but it was still guessing. We were just
Right.
guessing those
Right.
prices.
Right.
And like we just didn't know what we didn't know. And, to give you an example, I've got a little property across from me here, and I remember after I put Price Labs on, I remember getting a booking, and the booking was for a weekend. And the weekend, normally we would charge $350 a night. The
Yeah.
booking was for $600 a night. And I
Oh,
thought, oh my gosh, we've made a
yeah.
mistake. We're doing
Yeah.
something wrong. I actually rang Price Labs. It turns out that there was a school rugby tournament. So a
Wow.
school sporting tournament. I would never have known about that. But
Nothing.
what it
Yeah.
was doing was it was eating up all the accommodation. And yes, my property was worth $600 a night. So
Wow.
when I
Yeah.
discovered that, I thought, you know what? There are experts out there that do know better.
Yeah.
Trust in the process. You will. You
Yeah.
just got to trust that these guys do know. So yeah,
Yeah.
learn the hard
So
way.
I'm glad you said that because I was one of the questions I was gonna ask you here like is if at 130 properties that you were managing, you know, because I'm thinking number one like how do you scale that big? So and I would think you need the proper tools, right? And you need the proper team. So what is like the one tool which
What's the
I
secret?
think I think you're probably gonna say Price Labs, but what is like the one tool that you're like you need to have this to get to 130? And then also number two, what does your team look like at
Yeah,
that stage?
yeah, good question. Tool wise, I think the best thing that you can do is have the right paperwork ready to go. So you need to have and procedures, but have the procedures not in your head.
Okay.
Write them down in black and white so that
Mm-hmm.
that the business isn't dependent on you. And that's probably my secret tool, as I would say, because I really didn't use any software. Well, as we said,
Right.
Airbnb, I had zero with my accounting software.
Right.
I had a real estate software as well that I used because I was running a trust account.
Okay.
But that was it. There's nothing else that I had to use. Secret sauce was, and this is how I scaled so quickly, was that I had a team of co-hosts or property hosts, people that I could basically, as soon as I took on a listing, as soon as it was furnished, it was listed, it was up on Airbnb, I was able to pass that off to my co-host. And I'm going to tell you about Glenn. Glenn was my very first co-host. Glenn was 70 years old when he started. He was a retiree who was just bored. He wanted something else to do with his life. So
Wow.
I said to him, have you got a mop, a bucket, and a smartphone? He said, yes. And I said, right, here's 5 properties. I said, so I had built them up and I was doing all the cleaning myself. And after I got to the 17 beds in one day story, I went, that's it. I need help. And Glenn just so happened to put his hand up. Here, Glenn, take these 5 properties. You are now going to do all guest messaging. You're going to do the meet and greets in person. We did those.
Right.
Cleaning. You are going to do all the laundry. And then you are going to make sure that the property is in solid, not in disrepair, that it's maintained, that it is well looked after, there is no damages there. You are responsible for it. And then you're going to do it all again. Now, the deal was that I was charging the homeowner 25%, but I was paying Glenn, my co-host, 6%. I was paying him a profit share, 6%, plus the cleaning fee. Now, Glenn with when he eventually got to 10 properties, he was earning about $1,500 a week. He was running his own little business under my umbrella. So imagine like a franchise. He was setting his own times. He was able to just look on Airbnb at his 10 properties because I could co-host him through that platform. He was able to message the guests. He was able to encourage the guests to stay longer. He was able to encourage the guests to buy upsells such as tours, or he might, we had all sorts of other little income streams coming in. But he was able to then take pride in those properties because he was responsible. He was able to know the properties inside out. So when he went to clean the properties himself, he could notice if there was a scratch on the wall, if there was a glass missing, and he could report that straight away. So he took pride, he was empowered, he was loyal, and he was grateful that he was able to build his own little business under my massive umbrella. So then I got to use my time where it was best at use, which was going out and finding more properties and listing those properties and then passing those off to these co-hosts. So I guess I'm now teaching people how to do that, and I have got the blueprint of what I did that I can sell to people and say, here, just copy this model and you can scale up too, and you can do it remotely. A lot of our listeners right now might have investment properties remotely and you're nowhere near them. So how do you trust somebody in another town to look after that property for you? You do what I did. You profit share, you give them a piece of the pie, and you give them some responsibility to look after that property. So there you go. You've got all my secrets now.
Wow. Yeah. That is. I'm gonna replay this little section here because that's insane. And one thing I wanted to ask you, because you keep saying that your property, your co-hosts are doing the clean themselves as well. Were they also they were actually physically doing it, or are they? Are they or would they hire people as well and start a little cleaning company? Or a lot of people down here in the States, especially down here in Miami, they were well, I do it myself. I have a third-party cleaner, so a lot
of people do. But then how do you rely on that person? You might have a different person every time going into your property. How do they know if there's something missing? How do they know if there's damage there? They don't give a shit, and excuse my language, but they just don't care. They're there for an hourly rate, or they're there to do their job. They've got no reason to care about your business. They've got no reason to go out there and tell their friends about your business and try and get you more listings. So you've got to look at bringing a team in directly. And yes, initially they do start off cleaning themselves, but then the novelty does wear off. So what I do is I help encourage them to grow their business and come up with a business plan so that they can employ cleaners. And I'll tell you, one lady, the next person that I put on after Glenn her name is Natalie. She ended up having 23 properties under her control. Wow. She didn't clean though. She had her mum and she had her sister doing all the cleaning. Her job was to go to each property and to put eyes on every property and supervise the cleaning, make sure the cleaning was up to scratch, because at the end of the day, my contract was with her, with Natalie, and if something was wrong with that property, she was going to answer to it. Now, I did make these co-hosts sign off on all the linen, all of the homewares, so that if the linen went missing, she had to replace it herself. So there was that contract in place. So she actually took ownership of it and made sure that everything was in its place and everything was in order. Natalie at 23 properties was earning $4,000 to $5,000 a week. So there's some big money in it for these people if they could show capacity and they had the team to look after those properties. Now, what I was doing was that I was rewarding the hosts that could show that they could take on more. I was giving them another property as they were showing that they wanted more. If the reviews were coming in and saying that the cleaning was not up to scratch or the homeowner said that they were not completely happy, that's when I might take a property off Natalie, for example. But so I was rewarding or punishing, I'm not punishing, but I was giving them what they could handle, the co-hosts. And so really what I did, I became the matchmaker between a homeowner wanting to get into short-term rentals and a budding entrepreneur wanting a business opportunity. And it's all about changing the narrative that we're using. Quite often short-term rental operators are going out saying, I need a cleaner. Does anyone want a job? Well, stop doing that. Go out there and say, I'm looking for a business partner, a co-host. Does anyone want a business opportunity? Once you start changing that narrative and that mindset, I promise you, those potential cleaners that maybe are already looking after your property, once you can teach them how to do maybe the messaging, meeting and greeting, once you give them a bit more responsibility and a piece of the pie, life becomes very simple, and then you can step back like I did. And with 130 properties, I was working on average 10 hours a week. I would turn up to my office, the girls would say, stop, what are you doing here? Don't touch anything. Because they knew that I didn't know the business as well as they did. So there's a few more secrets.
No, this is amazing. This is amazing. You're definitely dropping some nuggets here that I know a lot of people are going to be very, very interested. And we'll talk about how they can work with you in the future, whoever's interested. But the one thing that I was saying, so you're giving 6% to other co-hosts, and they're doing all the work basically. Now you are the in-between, and you're still, like, as far as the relationship with the owner, you're the one in charge with that, right? Like you're not like just connecting them. You're the one who's keeping that business relationship going with the owner.
Exactly. And eventually, after I got to about 50 properties, I knew that I couldn't do that on my own either. So I employed a property manager, and that was my first employee. So I had 50 properties before I put anybody on a wage, because I didn't have any money. When I first started this business, I had no money. So folks, if you're listening right now and you're thinking, great, sounds wonderful, how the hell do I start without any money? You need a smartphone, you need a mop, a bucket, a good vacuum cleaner, and a car, probably. Because that's how I started. I mean, in full transparency, I had $9,000 when I started, because I put a website together, I put on some good software, I bought a good vacuum cleaner, and put some computers. But you don't need that. You can actually start a property management business with nothing other than your brain, smartphone, vacuum cleaner, mop and bucket. Get out there and do the hard yards yourself until you get to, like I did, 50 properties. At that stage, the cash flow was such that I could put a property manager in to start dealing with the homeowners and Airbnb and doing the listings, doing the pricing, and doing that side of the business. What I then kept control of was the money. I loved looking at the transaction history. I loved counting the cash as it was coming in the bank. I wanted to make sure I was paying people. So I was doing that and the recruiting, but the property managers were overseeing these co-hosts. They were supervising them. They were dealing with the homeowners. And eventually I had 2 in geographical locations. And then a third employee came on as my assistant. She just mainly got me cups of tea, glasses of wine. We did a lot more than that. But folks, it doesn't have to be hard, and you can start with nothing.
And like, so you did. Let's talk about like other profit centers here, like other streams of income here. You did mention that you were doing other streams of income. I know you had the like you were selling and buying. I'm sorry, selling or helping your owners buy their properties as an agent, but you were also in your book you were saying that you were doing consultancy, right, on setting up properties and setting up listings, which I've never heard about, and then also co-hosting. Is it different from what you were doing with the property management?
No, it's the same
how are you
thing.
charging
And
with
the
that?
terminology, yeah, sometimes you'll hear the terminology co-hosting.
Right.
It is the same as property management, folks. So it is purely where you are taking fully furnished homes from somebody else and you're managing on a commission. But co-hosting, it's the same concept. It's just just the language around that. The consulting, however, now here is a business opportunity for a lot of people.
Right.
So you'll find that the Airbnb are giving some massive referral kickbacks. If I'm to refer anybody to join Airbnb at the moment, they're giving out $900 as a consultant, like as a referral kickback. I know. So check as a host, if you're an Airbnb host, check what the referral kickback is for you. Next thing you need to do is I was putting out there to the community that I was offering an hour free consultation for anybody who has never had an Airbnb account. Okay, so here's the thinking. If I can help mum and dad set up their own profile on Airbnb, set up their listing and just show them the basics of how to run an Airbnb in an hour, when they got their first guest, I was getting $900 from Airbnb.
Wow. So
it was a very good... Oh, I'm sorry, there's Australia, we've got a siren going off that'll disappear in a second.
It's all good.
Or maybe they're just excited that I'm giving away nuggets. But folks, that was a really good concept to be showing that you're educating and you're giving back to the community by offering free consults. Of course, I was always upfront with my people that when I was doing the consults, I'm going, actually, I am getting a kickback if you get a guest in. So it is my best interest to help you get a guest. Right. But the novelty quite often wore off for those mum and dad entrepreneurs. The novelty wore off. So after cleaning the bathroom three times in a week or whatever it might be, or dealing with guest issues, which we all know can be quite painful, they were then looking to come back to a professional property manager. Who were they coming to?
Nice.
Me. So it was a good lead source.
So you were getting the kickback from just sending them a referral link, and getting that kickback, and last question here before we get into how people can work with you. As far as like scaling, like, so you're looking at different property co-hosts that are working under your umbrella now. You said you can do remotely and stuff like that. Once you started to scale, like, you start to get to 10, then 20, then 30, then 40. Did you like kind of focus in on one target area, or did you say anything that comes, I don't care if it's like 3 miles away from me or 3 hours away from me, if somebody calls me there, I can easily, sign that person up and then go look for, a co-host? Or were you just like, I'm just going to focus in on one area?
Okay, so initially I wanted to take on the world. I was like, I'm going to have properties everywhere, until logistics got in the way, and I went, this is like, I'm a bit of a control freak, so I need to have these properties close by. So 130 properties were all within a 40-mile radius, I would say, of where I lived. Because once I looked in my own backyard, there were a lot of opportunities for me to take up. So there was something like 1,500 short-term rentals in my one city location, and it was there for the taking. So I went crazy with those 130. I have developed, however, a bit of a concept around those co-hosts that I was saying, taking the 6%, doing all the guests, like being the boots on the ground with those properties. For a remote person, I would pay them 10%. And I would have them going out there to do the initial appraisal of the property. deal with the homeowner, upload and onboard that property, deal with the photography, like all those things that we need to do to get a property ready. But sorry, just got distracted. But then they would look after the guest communications, they would look after those guests, but then also go and buy things like consumables, the toilet paper, the shampoos, conditioners.
Right.
But I just did a bigger profit share and looked at it like, okay, I'm going to open a franchise in this other city. So I think that's probably the secret there. But you've got to have, it's like the chicken or the egg. Do you take on the property first or do you find the good person first? That's probably the trickiest part when it comes to that remote hosting. So, but otherwise, look in your own backyard. You'll find that there's plenty of opportunities.
There's plenty. Yeah, that's kind of my shift right now. Like I'm focusing in like on my in my vicinity, because you don't need to be all over the place, and like you said, logistics can get really crazy. So I ask all my guests, and this has been an amazing interview, amazing, a lot of nuggets, guys. I hope you guys listen to this episode over and over again, because things that Julie is saying here is gold. But I ask all my guests that have that are into short-term rental space, if you were to start all over from scratch, knowing what you know now, Julie, how would you start your Airbnb business?
Ooh, good question. Okay, so I guess, look, I wouldn't probably do it too much Actually, the only difference is when I started in 2016, there was nobody offering any help, any coaching, any mentoring, any education. There were no books like this available. Yes. I had to learn the hard way. I learned the hard way, and I still made 1.4 million in that first year. So I just look at people now, if they're starting fresh now, I know. Imagine if you're starting now. If you had a coach or a mentor being able to like I was saying to you, I can now hand you a blueprint and go, just follow this, just customize this, Kevin, put your logo on top of this document, and suddenly you've got a management agreement. Here's how you employ somebody. Here's a job ad that you can put out there. So like I would educate myself as much as I possibly could. Podcasts, I would listen to your podcast religiously. I would read these books religiously. I would get on YouTube. There's a lot of good free information there. If anyone's listening, interested in arbitrage, Sean Rakovich is probably my favorite, good buddy of mine. He's got thousands of hours of free content. Educate yourself. Jump straight in. Do not be afraid, but do it yourself. Learn. Don't try and work on the business straight away. You've got to get in the trenches and do the cleaning, do the guest communication. You've got to be careful of your expenses straight away. But look, I have started again. Funnily enough, I'm doing an arbitrage property here rather than management at the moment. Just a good opportunity that fell into my lap. But just get started. Just do it. That's the hardest thing, is getting that first property. Once you do, you'll be hooked and you'll just want to keep going and growing more and more. Nice.
You guys heard it from Julie George, how she would start her Airbnb business. So coaching is huge, and I know for anybody listening, they can actually hire you as a coach, which I am definitely considering. I know you've sent me information, so I gotta talk it over with the wife.
This was your free coaching call.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you being here. So, where what are you up to now? What is it? How are you helping people, and how can people find you and work with you if they do want to do that?
So my passion now is to help others. Last year I was able to work with 88 different established businesses. So I must say my probably my favourite type of person to work with is somebody who has established a business in short-term rentals. It doesn't have to be property management. In fact, I'm working with an interior designer at the moment. But it could be an arbitrage. It could be a real estate broker, that's doing a little bit of stuff on the side. But people that are established and looking to scale, they're the people that I'm working with. So I'm doing one-on-one coaching. It's not cheap, folks, but it is bloody good. I've got to say that I will jump in with you and just rip apart your business and tell you exactly what you need, give you the documents that you need. So that's something that we can do. But otherwise, I'm doing a lot of speaking professionally. So you'll find that at most of the large conferences, I'll be up on stage with this funny Australian accent, and that I'm doing a lot of. Actually, do you know what? I'm going to tell you and your audience something that is coming up. The latest book that I have written, Hospitable Hosts, has just been picked up by Netflix.
Wow!
So I'm
congratulations.
about to start filming a Netflix show. So that's the latest exciting news, is that there is a Netflix show coming. We're doing the pilot very shortly. And yeah, folks, you may just see this face on a screen near you sometime soon.
Oh wow! That's amazing. Congratulations for that. And again, the two books are $1 Million Host and Hospitable Hosts, which will be on Netflix. Hospitable Host will be on Netflix as well. That's insane, and I will be definitely tuning in. I'm always on Netflix, so I'll definitely be tuning in when it's out. Do you have a launch date yet, or you guys are just starting to film?
I would say it's probably February, March next year, to be honest. So
okay.
It's we're doing all the hard work at the moment, all the production and the filming. But yes, awesome. Watch out. Hospitable Host. It'll be every episode a story on a different host around the world. We will be having a new book come out in 2023 as well. So there's another one coming out that we're currently taking submissions for people who want to be a published author. So folks, if you're listening right now, you want to be in a book, get in touch with me. I offer 15-minute free Zooms for anybody who is interested in having a chat. They just need to get in touch with me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you'll find me, or milliondollarhost.com.au. But otherwise, those books are on Amazon. Go. If you love it, leave us a review. If you don't love it, tell me.
Awesome. And I'll be leaving all the links in the description below for those of you guys who want to work with Julie and find her on social media, the books and all that stuff. I'll definitely make sure to put that in there. Julie, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I was really humbled and excited to have you on. This is an amazing show, and stick around for a second, Julie. I will see you guys on the next episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, like it, show some love, share it with people, leave a review, and definitely go get to both books by Julie George, because she is amazing. So there you go, $1 Million Host and Hospitable Host. All right, take care, guys. See you guys on the next one on the B&B Professional.